Hello and welcome, my friends and viewers, to this week's episode of Legendlore, where I draw and talk about monsters, characters, gods, magic items, adventures, and other things from D&D 5th edition. Together we'll go over their history and lore, how they're utilized in the modern edition, and the many ways that you guys can utilize them in your own games. This video we will be checking out the Gnoll, the menacing hyena-headed scions of the demon lord Yeenoghu. Standing at an average height of about 7.5 feet tall, Gnolls are relatively thin and lanky, proving to be a little bit more nimble and dexterous than one would initially think. Light and dark brown fur covers their greenish skin, oftentimes marked with spots and stripes, and many Gnolls have been known to bear a dirty yellow or reddish-gray mane, capable of flaring out when particularly angered. Many believe that Gnolls hold demonic blood within their veins, the truth of which varies from campaign setting to campaign setting, as well as the personal beliefs of the DM. But many of them do bear strange abyssal mutations such as talons, glowing red eyes, or black fur with orange spots. Female Gnolls were nearly indistinguishable from males by size and stature, to the point that an inexperienced adventurer may confuse the two without close physical examination, something that many would not be keen to risk. Gnolls also had particularly short lifespans when compared to other sapient humanoids, only living about 30 years on average. Now, this statistic can be skewed, however, due to their warring ways causing them to die faster, in the same way that it skews the perception of goblins and kobolds. There are also many various subtypes of kobolds, such as Flins, their shorter, stouter cousins who are often seen leading Gnoll tribes, half-Gnolls, born from the union of one Gnoll parent and one non-Gnoll parent, imagine how terrifying that is, and of course, the Witherling, a dead Gnoll whose body was consumed by the tribe before being reanimated through a necromantic ritual. These undead Gnolls then continue their ways of raiding and reaving, but do not need to consume food, which leaves a lot more for the living members of the tribe. In terms of culture, Gnolls were natural predators and reveled in the thrills of the hunt, always preferring the wilderness to the civilized world. As such, many can find Gnolls to be feral and aggressive, which isn't exactly inaccurate since Gnolls do start fighting amongst themselves as soon as they can walk. Strength is also incredibly important to the Gnoll, to the point that they may forego all sense of courtesy just to plant their flag and make sure that other people are aware of their presence and stature. While traditional D&D lore will tell you that Gnolls often turn towards evil alignments due to this attachment to hunting in the wilderness, I would go as far as to say that the Gnoll way of life was born out of necessity and a struggle to survive, more than anything else. Unable to grow or make things themselves, most Gnolls would resort to hunting, raiding, and scavenging whatever they can in order to feed themselves, arm their people, and facilitate the growth of the pack. The scavenging is to such a level that Gnolls have been known to eat carrion, having no particular qualms about eating the dead of their own tribes and of other races, a philosophy that it seems that they share with the lizard folk. As such, Gnolls never leave any corpse behind, as it would be a waste to do so, and some of the even more darker and depraved clans have been known to raid graveyards in search of bodies to feed on. Most Gnolls are also keen to take trophies from past victories in raiding or fighting against very powerful foes, while some trackers do this with a more practical purpose in mind, using the object's scent to aid them in stalking their prey. All this would have caused them to have developed the reputation of being nomadic sowers of chaos and destruction, to the point that a Gnoll who has quelled their hunger and instincts and feels guilt or remorse for their past actions is believed to be suffering from some form of madness. These Gnolls, who adopt a more empathetic, pacifistic demeanor, are often cast out of their tribes and seen as weak for their reluctance to bring harm to others, even if doing so would provide for the tribe. Despite their violent survivalist tendencies, Gnolls do place a very strong value on family and bloodlines, respecting that sort of familial connection more than any other aspect of a relationship. Though Gnolls within a pack are quick to fight each other for dominance, these bouts are usually quickly forgotten, and Gnolls of the same bloodline always have a deep, profound loyalty to one another. So much so that Gnolls who are particularly attached to one another and fight regularly together would throw away any form of personal glory in order to help their brethren. Even when separated from their own clan, tribe, or family, the Gnoll's instinctive need for such a connection causes them to pack bond with whoever they choose to befriend. When it comes to most Gnoll collectives, they usually abide by nomadic tribalism, led by chieftains who are often the strongest out of the group. These leaders were known to keep harems, but since Gnolls breed only for strength and ferocity, this harem of both males and females was always formed out of the strongest fighters that the tribe had to offer. Gnolls were also known to bear an affinity for canines, particularly hyenas due to seeing them as their own brethren, often keeping them as pets or as hunting dogs. When it comes to the more malicious Gnoll tribes and practices, there are some that say that Gnolls who leave their prisoners alive often subject them to a special form of torture and psychological conditioning, a brutal practice that can mentally break a captive by subjecting them to all manner of torment, including eating other prisoners alive in front of the subject. This would result in either wholly broken slaves, who only lasted so long as they were strong enough to serve their masters, or in a subject developing some form of deep-seated Stockholm syndrome, a blind loyalty to their captors that more intelligent gnolls could use to their advantage. These broken slaves would follow their masters into battle as thralls, or even infiltrate towns and cities in order to sabotage their defenses, laying the groundwork for a perfect gnoll raid. On the other hand, there is the rare gnoll pack that has decided to refrain from indulging in their peers' depravity. These clans, while also nomadic, refuse to engage in any form of violence except when severely provoked, embracing their bloodlust quote-unquote only in the avenues of hunting and tracking wildlife. These gnolls are the ones that are more likely to encounter and befriend members of other species, offering their services as trappers or hunters. As such, it is not uncommon to see a gnoll in the company of bugbears, hobgoblins, ogres, orcs, or even trolls as well. With Gnollish religion, gnolls were often worshippers of the demon lord Yeenoghu, who was believed to have created the gnoll race. The level of devotion to the Abyssal Lord varies depending on the tribe, though many gnolls who were fanatically devoted to Yeenoghu believed it was their purpose as Yeenoghu's servants to cleanse the weak from the world, serving a higher purpose through the chaos and death that they spread. Some gnoll priests could even summon demons to fight alongside them, this abyssal conjuring being the only real form of religious, ritualistic devotion to Yeenoghu, due to the fact that gnolls really held little regard for ceremony. Yet still, many of Yeenoghu's shamans and clerics would chant his name in battle and paint his holy symbol upon their arms and armor, that being a bloody canine eye. On the rare occasions that gnolls did perform rites to Yeenoghu, they did so by celebrating their victories through blood offerings. Sometimes Yeenoghu rewarded these acts by allowing a gnoll to be possessed by one of his demonic spirits, marking them as one of his chosen. The gnolls gifted with this power of the abyss were known as the Fangs of Yeenoghu, and would be known for their specific ability to change normal hyenas into full-grown gnolls, all by allowing them to feast on a foe that they had slain using their demonic powers. Those gnolls who turned away from Yeenoghu seldom embraced another deity, seeing no real difference between demons and gods, and sometimes gnolls would even seek the patronage of druids or fae spirits in the natural world, embracing them as the primal sense of nature, over the need for constant bloodshed. Now that we've finally finished up the immensely dense lore of the gnolls, let's talk about mechanics and using them in combat. Gnolls make for excellent fighters, rangers, barbarians, and rogues, being masters of stealth, tracking, and wilderness survival. Those keen to worship Yeenoghu or the natural world make for good moon or twilight druids, blood, death, grave, and war domain clerics, and even monks or necromancy wizards. However, don't feel limited by just these suggestions. A gnoll who has since left their life of slaughter can fit into any class based on their background. Whenever I throw gnolls at my party, I always try to make them masters of ambush, trapping, distraction, and guerrilla fighting. My gnolls always attempt to lead the characters out into the wilderness where they have the home advantage, deploying traps such as swinging logs, falling nets, hidden spike pits, and bear traps to capture, disorient, and incapacitate their enemies. Many gnolls will open an attack from a distance with longbows coated in poison, allowing their weakened target to shamble on and close the distance between them, before switching to the axe or flail that they're known for in melee combat. Gnolls also, of course, make use of their teeth and claws, grappling their enemies so as to inhibit their ability to escape, before feasting upon them right there in the middle of the fight. They may even go as far as to bite the hands off spellcasters, archers, and warriors in order to leave them permanently disarmed. Now, if your party is high enough level to have access to the spell Regenerate, that may not necessarily be a problem, but getting your hand back could also be a very interesting adventure in itself. Gnolls will also use their undead brethren, the Witherlings, as both infantry and as a trap. Witherlings consume no food and are already dead, and so they are always put in the front line to protect the living gnolls. A Witherling can also hide amongst an unsuspecting pile of bones before reforming right behind the players once the fighting starts, distracted by the noises and the sounds of the living gnolls that are leading them in. Furthermore, evil gnolls at high level can always be found paired with demons, which they can either summon themselves, have gifted to them by Yeenoghu, or collect around and revere it if the demon is particularly powerful or claims to be a servant of Yeenoghu. As such, you can have a spattering of gnolls accompanied by demons such as the Babao, the Balor demons, or you could even have them riding atop the backs of some abyssal chickens for good measure. When it comes to Gnollish treasure, I like to flavor normal magic items that you reward your players as being carved of bone or tanned skin, and have the gnolls bear a small hoard of collected items taken from their fallen foes over the years. Anywhere can really be a target for a gnoll raid, and so it wouldn't be too strange to see a gnoll wearing a priest's amulet from a pillaged temple, or a well-made +1 sword stolen from a now burned-down dwarven forge. For plot and or characters based off of gnolls, there's always the classic village or town is raided by the tribe, some of the villagers are kidnapped, and the party is commissioned to go and save them by the local ruling official. But that has of course been done to death, as people love to use gnolls as low-level adventure fodder, alongside goblins and kobolds. So let's try and do something a little different. For our first character concept, we have a gnoll who has taken the path of non-violence and pacifism, having lived the traditional life of raiding, killing, and left it all behind, much to the disdain of his former family. The character has a great deal of roleplay, such as dealing with the leaving of their family behind, especially when family is such an important aspect of Gnoll culture, and as such you can play them as a druid who has retreated into the comfort of nature and animals in place of their family, a monk who has meditated and worked long and hard to keep their hunger and tendencies at bay, or, if you want to be particularly spicy, you can have them be an Oath of Redemption paladin who swore a blood oath to never indulge in their old ways. And as such, they have ventured forth and sought to see if they can find a new family who will support them in their new chosen path. Now, on the other hand, if you wish to keep in line with Gnoll traditions of violence and brutality, but still want to be able to have them as a PC, you can have a Gnoll who joins a party as part of a vengeance quest. Something horrible came along and slaughtered the Gnoll's entire family, either for power or sacrifice or just because they could, and now the Gnoll is honor-bound to hunt down that enemy and see to their end. The killer of his family could have been a warlock seeking souls to pledge to their patron, a zealot cleric or paladin who is seeking to free the common people from the scourge of Gnolls, or, if you really want to make this backstory particularly punchy, you could have it be another Gnoll who slaughtered the PC's family, engaging in the monstrous Gnollish taboo of kinslaying, for some dark and terrible purpose. This PC would be ideal for classes such as Barbarian, Fighter, Ranger, and so on, and can indulge in as much dungeon delving and monster slaying as they want, so long as it brings them closer to their goal. And then, for our last avenue, you can have a Gnoll PC who has voyaged out into the world in search of a cure for a plague that is ravaging their dwindling tribe. Unfortunately for Gnolls, you can't exactly kill a disease, and this PC would end up being the tribe's only hope due to their strange immunity to the disease. This Gnoll can be a lot more cunning and careful in comparison to the traditional lot, and so can be played with caster classes such as the Death Cleric, the Oathbreaker Paladin, a Spores Druid, or even a Necromancer Wizard, accompanied by a small cadre of Witherlings beholden to his arcane will. For our Gnollish magic item this evening, we have the Witherling Ward, a +1 set of banded mail formed from the bones and jaws of former Gnoll Witherlings that have long since passed on. This armor requires attunement and grants the wearer an AC of 17, as well as granting an additional +1 bonus to their armor class and saving throws. Wearing this armor also grants you resistance to necrotic damage and immunity to the Frightened condition. Additionally, the wearer of this item can cast the spell Vampiric Touch 3 times a day as a bonus action, and whenever the wearer is hit by a melee attack, they may use their reaction to make a melee attack of their own against the enemy, or of course cast a spell instead if they have the Warcaster feat. I made this to be particularly ideal and useful for both martial and casting classes, and I've included an item stat block in the description below. So that's the Gnoll, everybody, and I may be inclined to do some more videos focusing on the specific Gnoll subtypes such as the Witherling and the Flint, and even the Fang of Yeenoghu. But that all depends on you guys. Please let me know in the comments below what you guys would love to see. If you guys enjoyed this little dissection of the Gnoll and want to see some more videos on D&D monsters, please click the subscribe button and press the little bell icon in the corner, and also please check out the monster playlist in the description below. I've covered things like the Crawling Claw, the Ettercap, the Shadow, and many other monsters. And if you guys want to support the channel further, please follow me on social media to get a chance to vote on which subjects I'll cover next in future videos. Also, please do check out some of the homebrew content that I've created down below on DM's Guild. And lastly, DMs, let me know how you guys have used Gnolls in your games, and players, let me know how you guys have encountered Gnolls in your games. And also let me know what kind of things you guys would like me to cover in the future. And until then, I will see you guys next time.